Oh,
let's start with sharing images using community galleries.
like pictures, right?
Yeah, sort of. I guess maybe if we consider a VHD a picture, do we consider VHDs pictures?
A VHD is a picture of a virtual machine.
They certainly tell a story. No, so in Azure, there has been this thing kicking around for a while now, which is the Azure Compute Gallery. So for a long time, you've been able to take a virtual machine in Azure, or even potentially like a virtual machine from another environment. Not the best idea, but typically we'd start with an Azure one just for the best experience. But you can take those images and you can customize them. So say it's like a Windows image, and you want to sysprep that image, like take it back to an out-of-the-box experience for running it through. Maybe you want to lay down your own bits on top of it just to give you an accelerator, like whatever it is. So you've had the ability for a long time to take those images and, it started out as, just grab a VHD, then you would create like an image, your next VM from that VHD. That's kind of a pain. And then they introduced this thing called a compute gallery. So effectively take your images and have your images with things like versioning associated with them. So like, okay, great, I've got my golden image for, Windows Server 2022. I've got my golden image for my Ubuntu 20.0.4 LTS version that I run in my environment, my RHEL thing, whatever it happens to be. Take those and then be able to like version them as you patch them, update your applications, all those kinds of things. Compute galleries have traditionally been private. So there's been like the Azure Marketplace, like, hey, go out to the marketplace from an official publisher, be it Microsoft or one of the other vendors that's in the marketplace. It's kind of been vetted by Microsoft, and grab your VHDs from there, or your images that you spin up. So a third-party example would be something like Kemp. Like you want to spin up a load balancer from Kemp. You need like a NetScaler kind of thing. Like, great, you can go spin those up, and those are kind of vendor-supported images from those companies. And now there's a new flavor that's kicking around, which within the community gallery, now you can, so within the compute gallery, Azure Compute Gallery, you can now have private galleries, which is traditionally what you've had. And you can also have a community gallery. And community galleries are interesting. So private galleries, as they've kind of existed, you could do RBAC sharing within your tenant. You could also do what was known as a direct shared gallery, potentially over to other users within your tenancy, other subscriptions, things like that. But generally, like your tenant, your Azure AD Entra ID tenant was a boundary for you for identity. So you couldn't really share those things publicly with other Azure users if you wanted to do that. Like, let's say you didn't, I don't know, you didn't meet the bar to go into the public marketplace. You just didn't even know it was the thing. You didn't want to deal with it. Like, you could just spin up one of these community galleries now. Because what community galleries allow you to do is you can still do RBAC. So you can still do things like share your images using role-based access control to a service principal, and anything like that, people, groups, whatever it happens to be. But it's not locked down to a specific tenant. So a community gallery lets you kind of break the boundary of a single tenant and get out there to more of the marketplace. Or you can just share things publicly. You can say like, hey, I've got this community image and I want to push it out for everyone out there to be able to see and get hands-on with. So it's kind of another mechanism or another way for publishers to share things potentially outside of the Azure marketplace. And, that's got like pros and cons to it. I think as consumers of images, like we need to be pretty careful there, because now there's maybe some additional vetting or things that you'll want to have in place. Because like marketplace images are certified. They go through a certification process, both for Microsoft images and like Microsoft as the vendor who's publishing them, or Kemp, Citrix, NetScaler, all those kinds of things. Those all go through a certification process. They're all good, vetted, verified, run them with your production workloads. You can do that with confidence. They'll be supported. There's a slew of first-party, third-party images, all that stuff just is kind of there. But I think the biggest thing is they are supported is probably the biggest thing for marketplace images. Community images, there's a certain degree of trust that you're going to have with the publisher, because you or I could just go create a community gallery today and spin up an image and put it out there. So you're kind of trusting that A, we know what we're doing when we build that image. B, we are licensed to build and distribute that image. There could be software licensing or other things that come into play there. So this is really good for open source stuff, potentially, depending on the license associated with that. I don't know how well or how much it gets used for commercial stuff. It's also great for testing. I could see a bunch of marketplace vendors potentially using this as a path to test their images and get them out there. There's no billing model, anything like that. Community images are just free. So it really is kind of think an Apple test flight kind of thing. It is very test kind of thing. And then that support angle is a rough one, I think, in that images published through a community gallery are supported by the owner of the image. So who's the person who made the image? That is who is ultimately responsible for support on top of that thing. And Microsoft calls this out in the documentation, hey, this is potentially an area you could be interested in. But if you are a consumer of community gallery images, you're not just a publisher, but you're also using them in your environment, you should exercise a degree of caution there because you really do have more work to do. You have to go verify the source. Again, there's no certification, scanning, anything like that happens on the way. There could be malware in these things. It's really on you to go and figure it out. And there's mechanisms for folks to report nefarious images to Microsoft. All that stuff's in place, but it doesn't stop it from getting out there as quickly the way it might do in something like the regular Azure marketplace.
Yeah, I was just looking through it. So if you go out to Azure and you browse for resources, you can go look up, and I think these are all community galleries. You can go look for the community images in Azure and just start browsing through them. So in community images right now, there are 4,600 images. And you're right, you don't know what any of them are. So one of them in here is from some guy named Pete, and the gallery is Pete Specialized, and it's a Windows 11. And they have a URL for the publisher's website, which just goes to his public blog. It's Peter, and it's a software engineer's logbook. But to your point, it's what is actually in this Windows 11 specialized image? Because one thing I don't see on any of these is for all of these community images, they have a name, location, architecture, publisher, but there's no description on any of these. I don't even see a description field where someone could go in and specify what this image actually is, or what's contained in it, or why I might want to use it. And I'm wondering if
it's a little rough. So if you go look at the way to deploy from a community image today, lots of the examples they start right off with CLI and REST, even over the portal deployment experience. But if you dig down in and you go okay, hey, let's look and see how you deploy this in the CLI, it's effectively do discovery, go out and list the images that are available, list the community images that are available. Funny enough, not a global resource, right? This is still a regional service. So go out and list the community images that exist in this region. like show me all the community images in East US and North Europe, like whatever it happens to be where you're deploying. Once you have that, the resource ID to that image. So effectively the string, like, here's the gallery name and, the GUID associated with that image, all that stuff, all the way down to the version. That becomes like what you pass into a VM create command to get things spun up and get them running. So, it's a new thing that's out there. I'd be interested to see like what the uptick on it is, and if you do see like MSRC reports on these over time, of like I could totally see a vendor coming in and doing something like a bad actor.
Right.
Vendors may have a bad choice. Where a bad actor comes in and slams a bunch of images into 60 regions, or you've got to play like whack-a-mole trying to figure out like which region which bad actor is in and where they've published images, things like that. Like there's more vetting for you to do as a customer here. Like you really do have to trust where these things come from.